In another module, I reviewed the unprecedented and exponential change that is occurring across the world. Do strategies exist that can be employed to cope with this bewildering and stressful period of change? While it is presumptuous to believe that any of us will adjust perfectly to this era of human history, some educated speculations about how to cope are warranted. First, we need to think differently about how we learn and from whom we learn. When I was 17 years old, I used to drive my 3 elderly Swedish great aunts to the supermarket. They would sit 3 in a row in the back of my 1956 Chevrolet. They were strong and healthy women, but all of them had been born in the late 1800s, before there were automobiles. When I turned a corner in my car, they would all tip sharply to the outside of the turn and nearly fall over in their seats. This never happened to my young friends because, after all, cars were second nature. Not so with my great aunts, who had grown up before the automobile. They had to learn how to use a technology and adjust to a culture that did not exist when they were young women. On the other hand, some things in life are natural. Breathing, walking, digestion, and cellular replacement are natural processes for most people. People need only some instruction in moving, eating, standing, or sitting. While culture may train us in the nuances of how to walk or eat, these processes are basically natural. Much of human behavior is learned from our family and culture with little effort. Speaking our native language, wearing clothes appropriate to our culture, using cars, trains, or airplanes that we have experienced since birth, eating food from our country, and adopting appropriate age and gender roles come naturally to most people. These things come from our culture, but seem natural, which is why we call them second nature. My friend and I did not have to learn how to sit upright in a car. It was second nature. To my great aunts, riding in a car was anything but second nature. My friends and I leaned into the center of the turn, tightened the muscles on one side of our body, counterbalanced our weight with a hand or finger on the seat or dashboard, and did these things unconsciously. For my elderly great aunts, sitting upright in a car required learning that was not second nature. For my daughter, computers, email, PowerPoint, YouTube, text messaging, MySpace, downloading software, and instant messaging are second nature. These technologies were part of the environment in which she grew up. Many people my age never learned how to even use a laptop, an Excel spreadsheet, or email, let alone knowing how to create a web page or put music on their face page. Those of us in my generation that learned these skills learned them slowly, laboriously, and with great effort. They are not natural, and they require considerable effort at each step. They are anything but natural. They're not even second nature. To the extent they are adopted at all, they're what I call third nature, which isn't natural or intuitive at all. Nature is the primary force that unites all humans, regardless of race, nationality, country, or culture. All humans live, breathe, eat, sweat, mature, mate, have offspring, deal with illness and death, experience joy, fear, anger, and love. Second nature is mostly unconscious, which, by the way, is one of the wonderful aspects of traveling and experiencing another culture. as this exposes the many practices we engage in different parts of the world. It is one of the reasons why cosmopolitan people that travel and interact across cultures are more innovative. I will expand on this in a few minutes. If you are accessing this video conference, you are in the midst of an information and technology revolution. Our pace of change is exponential. 2 decades ago, the internet was non-existent to the average person. We have had mobile phones for only a decade and a half. Instant messaging is a recent invention, and MySpace, Face Pages, and YouTube have been around for just a few years. What does the accelerating pace of technology mean? Its adoption is automatic for your 20-year-old son or daughter who cannot remember a world without email, text messages, and Face Pages. On the other hand, for every business and individual, a choice must be made: retool or get left in the dust. For the answer to this challenge, we must return to what I have called third nature, those things that are not natural to us, but which we can learn, usually slowly and laboriously. Individual and business that are satisfied with their technologies and practices of 20 or even 10 years ago have made a conscious decision to become obsolete. Imagine the businesses without websites, email, or mobile phones. They could not compete in a global information economy. Learning how to learn is a crucial competence today. The great sociologist and anthropologist Margaret Mead describes 3 learning cultures, 3 ways we learn. The first, called post-figuration, is something we've been doing for tens of thousands of years, learning from our elders. Our elders have a story to tell from living through history, learning from experience, and gaining wisdom and perspective that can only come with age. We should seek their counsel and heed their advice. But in a world of exponential change, they cannot teach us about contemporary medicine, electronics, statistical analysis, computer technology, or current trends or fashions. Mead suggests that for the last several hundred years, most countries have become co-figurative cultures that learn from our peers, people our own age. They too can share with us some best practices and current trends. Much innovation occurs from interacting with and learning from our peer group. Sadly, in a world of exponential change, they too are doomed to early obsolescence. So where does that leave us? Contrary to our best intuition, we need to reach across culture and across generation to the youngest and most innovative members of the culture. The cutting edge of innovation in a world of exponential change exists in people of a generation or perhaps 2 generations younger than us. My statistical consultant is in his 30s. My computer technician is in her 20s. Nearly 2 decades ago, a 9-year-old taught me about the internet. Contrary to our usual practices and common sense, we must reach downward across the generations and learn from people for whom this strange postmodern world is second nature. This is a process Mead called prefiguration, and it is a roadmap for avoiding obsolescence and understanding change as it happens. In the Stone Age, postfiguration was enough. A wise elder could teach us everything we needed to know. During the industrial era, co-figuration was fine. What our parents could not teach us, our classmates and coworkers could provide. In the current post-industrial, postmodern world in which we live, neither of these is enough. We must turn for much of our knowledge and technology to those far younger than us through a process Mead calls prefiguration. Just as we must reach across generation, we must also reach across culture and across country. No country, including China, England, Japan, or the United States, has anything approaching a monopoly on information, technology, or innovation. In a global economy where ideas and products and communication move across borders at the speed of light, everybody is a potential player. Medical innovation comes from all corners of the world: Brazil, Sweden, Cuba, and South Africa. Electronic and software breakthroughs occur from Boston to Bangalore, from Ireland to Indonesia. While globalization has its downside, it can displace workers, cause mass immigrations, undermine national sovereignty, distort economies, and violate national pollution laws. It is inevitable. In the area of the internet, no idea is the property of a single country. In the world of the airplane or the automobile, no border is a barrier. Nations can slow globalization, but they cannot stop it. The successful organizations must transcend borders, find markets and partners from throughout the world, and borrow innovations wherever they occur. Successful businesses and individuals cannot be provincial in a global world with exponential change. Reaching across borders and generations is a necessity in a world where ideas have no geographic boundaries and knowledge is not confined to any single generation. At one time, our ancestors worked on the same farm for their entire life, or they worked in a business, or worked 30 or more years for the same company. This is not the way of the postmodern world of today, and will be less and less the case in the future. Today's worker in the new economy is unlikely to work for the same organization in 5 or 10 years that they work for today. But even more surprisingly, in the most industrialized countries, we will not just have 5 or 10 different employees or businesses, they will have 5 or 10 different careers. What does this mean for you as individuals? In short, it means that acquiring as many skills as one can is imperative. There is no irrelevant knowledge. The engineer of today may be composing electronic music tomorrow. The artist of today may be designing the multimedia marketing campaigns of tomorrow. This is why there's no such thing as irrelevant knowledge. The most marketable workers of the future will benefit from understanding art, literature, communication, economics, engineering, geology, science, public relations, geography, history, biology, and a whole lot more. In fact, it is at the cutting edge of several disciplines that the greatest strides will be made. As the most marketable people in the future will be those with the greatest skill set and the most eclectic education. This means reading and surfing the web and going to conferences and taking courses that will broaden your knowledge base and help you to adapt to a new world we can only imagine today as global collaboration networks. Whole industries may disappear and whole professions may become obsolete, like the typesetters, blacksmiths, and scribes of yesteryear. The versatile will survive, and having more skills will lead to more opportunity. For organizations, this presents challenges and opportunities. One of the greatest challenges will be retaining the best workers. When people in communication, engineering, science, education, indeed all fields, can market their skills anywhere in the world, companies must take new measures to retain their best workers. Each outstanding employee that goes to another country or business costs tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to search for, hire, retrain, and retain a replacement. Each worker lost means lost skills and institutional knowledge that is nearly impossible to replace. To retain these workers, companies and government agencies must provide unprecedented programs for continuing education, child care, workplace wellness, telecommuting, and profit sharing. For nations, the changing global economy means accepting, even welcoming, people from other countries and cultures. These people will speak many languages, threaten cherished and long-standing values, have strange religions, worship different gods, or none at all, wear unusual clothing, and constantly violate the rules of your culture that you take for granted. Countries like Brazil, the United States, and Australia are wildly multicultural and are models for countries of the future. Transcending tribe, accepting difference, accommodating strangers, and learning to tolerate difference will characterize successful countries and companies of the future. In the past, two companies with similar products were competitors. They fought for customers with better products, lower prices, better service, advertising, and available supplies. Likewise, some countries collaborated and cooperated as sellers and customers and through the creation of joint ventures. In the last 2 decades, companies may simultaneously collaborate and compete, a process known as co-opetition. Competing electronics firms may compete and struggle for their market share with their email software systems while simultaneously collaborating on research and development of a new breast cancer drug. Co-opetition spreads risk and cost while capitalizing on core competencies in collaboration. Just because you are competing on one product does not mean you need to compete on other products. The survival of many private and public organizations and their ability to grow may be dependent on how quickly they embrace co-opetition as a core part of their business. New technologies are essential for individuals, businesses, and countries to compete in the global marketplace. A recent United Nations report indicated that the most productive workers in the world are living in Norway, the United States, Luxembourg, Belgium, and France. These countries have hardworking people, but that does not explain their high productivity. Indeed, the same United Nations report showed that workers in South Korea, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Hong Kong, China, Malaysia, and Thailand worked the most average hours per worker. But those countries had lower productivity rates. The success of the most productive countries in the world can be attributed primarily to the revolution in computer and information technology, and with extension of trade and commerce globally. The report revealed that despite being hard worker and intense, laborers in countries in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East have the potential to create far more wealth, but are being held back by a lack of investment in training, equipment, and technology, the United Nations report said. Technology is a key to productivity in electronics, medicine, manufacturing, and agriculture. Companies and countries should not adopt any new technology. They should make sure it is cost-effective, appropriate to their needs, and is accompanied by sufficient training to maximize the benefits that technology can provide. In the adoption of new innovations, there are 5 categories of users. First are the innovators who would rapidly adopt almost every new innovation quickly. Then there are early adopters who follow the lead of innovators in the adoption process. Next come the early majority, who are slower to adopt an innovation, but will do so once the early adopters accept a process, product, or technology. Then there are the late majority, who are skeptical, technically unsophisticated, and very slow to adopt a product or project. Finally, appear the laggards, who rarely, if ever, adopt a process or practice that was new since they were children. Many opinion leaders are found among the early adopters who try new innovation and communicate about these innovations with their followers. The key to getting the majority of the population who are located in the late and early majority to adopt a product is to get opinion leaders in the early majority to adopt. These opinion leaders informally influence others. Studies have shown this process works for almost every innovation, from getting families to buy a television or home computers, to getting employees to adopt electronic filing or email, to getting your company to conduct business-to-business e-commerce online. How do businesses get people to adopt these new technologies and products? This is increasingly difficult because many consumers are not innovative and cling to old practices in a rapidly changing world. One solution is the open source concept, also called free software or the partial giveaway. In these systems, users are viewed as co-developers and often speed the spread of a new technology. Often a beta or test version is provided free with the hope that users will buy the eventual more sophisticated future product. Getting businesses or consumers to employ e-commerce faces a different set of barriers. While buying products online is more convenient, any consumers will not make a purchase unless they can experience the look and feel of a product in a real store. Many of the most successful businesses have discovered that they must have both a virtual online store as well as a real physical store. The future is in the fusion between traditional bricks and mortar stores and internet stores. But here are a few final rules that may smooth your transition into the future. 1. Expect the unexpected. The most successful businesses, individuals, and governments are the least calcified and the most nimble. Businesses that are wedded to the past will go the way of the dinosaurs. In an era of exponential change, the watchword is adaptability. In any business plan, it is important to have plans B and C available to cope with the almost inevitable change. 2. Be open and skeptical. The twin evils of the present era are closed-mindedness and gullibility. Closed-mindedness prevents innovation and adaptability and is deadly in an era of exponential growth. But do not be gullible. If a new technology or business deal seems too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. 3, try as many innovations on a limited scale. Trialability is essential to the adoption of new innovations. Do not force new technologies on employees or customers. Remember, most people will not buy a new car without a test drive, and the same is true of nearly everything. Employees and customers need to try beta versions of any new product or technology. 4, devote resources to research. In an era of exponential change, every kind of research is essential, or you cannot keep up. Research in finance, engineering, demographics, marketing, communication, technology, and so much more is essential. Companies and individuals that learn, explore, and innovate will be much better prepared for the next change, whatever it is. Give your company and your employees the freedom to grow and to know. 5, talk to opinion leaders. Connect to the people on the cutting edge that will inform you about new trends and technology. Opinion leaders are not always formal leaders. They are people who read and travel and know the answers and are frequently informally asked their opinion. 6, don't be afraid of leapfrogging. Decades ago, cities in England and the United States tore up every street to lay copper wire in the ground to connect every person via telephone. Countries without copper to every doorstep would be foolish to follow in their footsteps. Today, cellular technologies enable emerging cities in the third world to install wireless local loops, bypassing traditional wire lines altogether. Moreover, Moore's law suggests that each innovation costs less today than it did yesterday, which is exactly what is happening to high-definition televisions or laptop computers. 7, transcend culture. Innovation knows no national boundaries. Information workers from around the world have immigrated to many countries. Formerly homogeneous countries like Sweden, Germany, and Ireland have knowledge workers from throughout the world. Knowledge workers make up more than 25% of some national economies, and many come from other countries. In some countries, information workers have left their home, creating information communities in other nations and a brain drain. And the most educated scientists, developers, and engineers head for markets that pay the most money. In fact, many developing countries are falling behind Asia in the training and creation of knowledge workers. There may not be a sufficient supply of the most skilled workers in your own country. If you want to be on the cutting edge, open up your business to workers from across the world and import the best brain power. 8, listen to the young. Only the young fully understand new technology or the latest cultural trends. If you are installing new technology, developing a business plan, starting a marketing strategy, consult with 20-year-olds and even teens. Hire young workers with the greatest technical skill to help retrain older workers. Some studies reveal the biggest divide today is not nationality, race, or gender, but generation. I wish you all well in this challenging era of global accelerated change and competitive realities, reminding you that self-confidence, innovation, and immunity to the prospect of failure are increasingly crucial elements for superior productivity, performance, and excellence. Thank you.